So what's up, everyone? I got my friend Jennifer here, and Jennifer is in the hydration space. As she takes a sip of water, I'm gonna take a sip of water too,
I know, right?
because hydration is key. So I'm pumped to have her on, and we're just gonna see where things go. So
Yeah.
happy to have her on. I was actually to start things off hot. I was showing her before we hopped on these hydration things. You know, liquid IVs, things like that have been becoming more and more popular. And Jennifer's saying she can spit some knowledge in terms of like what are these things. So Jennifer, what's going on with these things so you can show people your expertise in the hydration space to kick things off.
Oh, okay. Well, Joshua, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you this morning because it's a whole different, you're coming from a whole different genre than I'm used to, this whole financial world, right? And I'm used to taking care of people, you're used to taking care of money. They're kind of hand in hand in a certain way, I guess, because we need both, right? So it's exciting to like unpack some stuff with you. Yes, I am a hydration person, but basically 20 years of training athletes and being a sports medicine trainer is what has got me into the industrial field, working with what I call industrial athletes, like the guys that are working, the men and women working on rooftops and roadways and in extreme environments like athletes do. So I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to, I'll talk about the IV thing here in a minute. I knew how to fuel an athlete for the environments that they were in, and so they could get the best of the best. Because it's if you're you can anyone can tear down an athlete to make, but it's getting them stronger, faster, and all that. It's in the recovery process, right? So I knew how to do that for them, and I saw a real need for that in the labor industry because I was like, we have the best of the best for these athletes, but then we have nothing for these men and women that are working in these extreme environments for hours and hours a day. So we'll get on that topic here in a little bit. You brought up the liquid IV, the packets, the things you buy at Costco, the stuff that's out there, all of the I call them hyped um, hydration drinks, I guess. And the concept of them is right because you have to have salt in order to hydrate. Everyone thinks water hydrates you. It doesn't. Water is the carrier of what hydrates you. So the liquid IVs and things like that, I'm not going to badmouth any buddy, but what they have a lot of things in them is they have the dyes, they have the things that make it taste good. They've got the artificial stuff along with salt, and the salt's actually what hydrates you. The other things can kind of dehydrate you and cause like inflammation and can do the opposite of what you're trying to use it for. So it's been an interesting journey because a lot of education has been needed in this area, and it seems
Mm-hmm.
like a simple concept, but how many people, you have no idea how many people day on day on day on day every day is like, I drink tons of water and and I'm like, that's good. That's probably why you're dehydrated though. It's hard for them to understand that concept. So or they're spending all their time in the bathroom, right? Because they're increasing their water intake and they're not. And so what they're doing is they're washing out all the stuff that you need to hydrate with. Like you need sodium. Our brain runs on sodium. People don't even realize it's an on-off switch. So if you start to get that foggy brain or like not sparking like you should, it's probably because your sodium levels are low because it's going to other organs to try and function. So I'm probably nerding out way too much right now. So I'm gonna like stop and do you have any questions on that, or if I'm kind of all over the place with it?
Well, from my point of view,
Yes.
typically the problems are complex, yet the answers are simple. I remember I was talking to someone and their son had to go to the emergency room because he was having kidney failure, and he was like, really in shape, blah, blah, blah. Like, and his kidneys were failing and they didn't know why. And basically they gave him an IV, and within a short amount of time, he was already good to go. And then all the doctor was like, so when you're training, what do you drink? And I remember him telling me, the mom telling me, oh, he just drinks a lot of water. He's like, you need to just start drinking Gatorade and that'll fix your problems. Have a good day. So like this whole crazy story was just from not being hydrated.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
I
like
drink
what's
water.
just straight water? Like,
Mhm.
you need, if you're training really hard, you need a lot more than just water. So like for someone who is just like your normal person, your typical non-athlete per se, like what's the first step you suggest taking in terms to properly being hydrated?
Well, you have okay. So it's salt and water, and I'm being very basic with that. So you have your refined processed sodium, that you have on a tabletop that you put sprinkle on stuff. You have it sodium that's found in all of the prepackaged foods and preservatives and all that kind of stuff. We're not talking about that kind of salt, right? That kind of salt raises blood pressure. And it's mixed with sugars and all additives and stuff, and so it affects the kidneys in a bad way. It affects the heart. It affects all the blood pressure and everything wrong. And then you have someone that's out in the elements, like the people I deal with, like the labor industry, and they're sweating a ton. They're told by their doctor stay away from salt, but then they're sweating out a ton of salt, electrolytes, and things like that. And so you have to put in the good kind because you're sweating it all out. And then the ones that they're trying to be like really good and go, I'm just going to hydrate, and they're going to drink a gallon of water a day. And so then they're washing out even more of the stuff that their body needs to function. And then they're the ones that end up in the emergency room getting the IV, and especially with children. So the stuff that we do is we add like kind of an oral IV to the job site. So what we do is like in our product, it's just the potassium, just the sodium, just the chloride, which is a electrolyte that most people don't even know about, and it's not found in a lot of your hydration drinks. Okay. And then a little bit of magnesium, because we don't want too much magnesium. You want it enough to balance your pH levels, but you don't want it to an extreme where you're having to poop too much. is that yeah, people can relate to that. Anyway, so you do that so we can put that straight back in. There's no additives, there's no sugars, there's no dyes, there's nothing. It's just literally in an ionic form, so you can take it in a shot. Where's my stuff? So you can take it in like a shot where a little bit of water and just like shake it up and boom, and then down the hatch. So if you're in a stressful situation and your sodium levels are really low, or potassium levels, or your kidneys are shutting down, that's why they have those charts, the P charts, the yellow, brown, bad. You know what I'm talking about? That's your kidneys, right? That's that you're not flushing out enough. And so potassium is real important for your kidneys to run, but you're sweating them out, and you're not getting it in your food sources. You're not getting it in your water sources. So if you're, it causes a lot of stress to the body. So what we do is we add that value by just having something like this available. Ideally, we'd like for people to be doing it all day long in their water and their liquids and things like that. In your coffee, like you could replace the sodium that you lose drinking coffee, 600 milligrams in the morning of sodium that you need to think, and then put it back in your coffee. But it's a mineral taste, so it's strong. But we need it to be that way because a lot of times we are not proactive with our hydration, and then when you got people working in those environments day after day, triple digit heat here in Texas, there's health problems. And so we have it for like to where you can take it in a shot, like just squirt it in like 2 or 3 ounces and get it in the body, and then you can increase the levels quickly. Within like 6 to 8 minutes, you can get out of a really bad heat stress situation, which is dehydration. Did I go all over the place for you? Answering any questions? What questions do you have about that whole situation? Because you said the IV with the kid with the kidneys going into the emergency room. That is something that we see a lot of because people are drinking water, trying to hydrate, and not realizing they need salt.
No, that totally makes sense. It appears like too much of anything can actually be detrimental to your health rather than an asset to your health per se. So I mean, like, I guess like one thing that I'm curious about, I'm not sure if you knew the answer or not, is like, some people say you need to drink a gallon of water a day, but depending on the kind of person, that might be too much
Right.
water. Like, how do you figure that out for like an everyday person?
An everyday person needs to be drinking half their body weight in ounces of water a day. So if you're a 150-pound person, what is that, 75 ounces? But the problem is we drink clean, clear water. We drink water that's been filtered, right? We drink water we want clean water, right? But when you filtered water, you filter out the stuff that we're supposed to have to hydrate. So that's why it's important to put the minerals back in that have been filtered out. Because when you filter out the bad, you filter out the good. Like we were meant to literally drink water from streams and from the ground. And so what's in that? That's minerals, right? So we're drinking this clean water, and then we're drinking this clean water, and it's washing out all even more. So that's why you got your football players. That's what I used to, train. They're walking around the school every day with their gallon jug, and they're washing out all the stuff that they need to perform on top of, sweating in environments. And so then they get fatigued, they get tired, they have cramps, they have all these things that are happening and they're disciplined and doing the right thing, supposedly, right? So that's why it's so important to understand that hydration is salt and water. It's that balance. And so that's what we're doing is we're adding that back into literally the campaign that my company we just started is drinking water versus hydration. There's the opposite. There's a little everything's backwards with these things. There's a thing behind me. It's called an infograph, and so they go at the job sites that we're at, and it just talks about what hydration really is, because we have it so messed up. We really think that hydration is water, and hydration is not water. Hydration is salt and water. And I'm being really basic by saying salt. Like mineral salt is different, right? Because it has trace minerals in it, and trace minerals are what your heart, your potassium and sodium pumps are what regulate your blood flow. When you sweat, you don't sweat out water. When they take your blood, the blood is not just water, right? But we try to fuel ourselves with just water, thinking we're going to hydrate. So it's misconception that we've all had, because if you think about it, if you watch the news or if you watch anything during the summer, especially here in the South, it's like every job site in America has case upon case upon case of waters, right? And then they have a campaign that says water rest shade, but yet this is your department. You're gonna be blown away by this. It's $100 billion with a B dollar a year problem in the labor industry, heat stress and heat illnesses. That costs the industry $100 billion in total in America alone. So it's a problem, and we keep trying to do the same thing over and over again. So that's what the concept of my company is JMAR Solutions, because I'm JMAR, and my husband named me JMAR because my name is Jennifer Martinez, and so J-Lo was a thing 20 years ago, and so when J-Lo became a thing, he was like, well, then you're JMAR. So that's how that whole thing started. But we named the company JMAR Solutions because we have a solution to this really real problem, and that we keep doing the same thing over and over trying to fix, right? It's if it worked, it wouldn't be $100 billion a year problem. So the companies that have taken our concept on and let us come in, and it's so simple. It's just add liquid to the job site, added safety, added energy, all the things that you need when you're in a heat stress situation or in a heat environment or an extreme environment and you're trying to function. So we're slowly, I mean, I don't know how you found me, through social media, right? We're slowly getting there and getting more and more interviews, and people are understanding the concept of what we're trying to bring into the industry. But it has been, if I can be honest, it has been the hardest thing I've ever taken on, and I've wanted to quit more times than not. But what keeps me going is that why. It's like I have to help people. And the concept started when I was training football players in triple digit heat, and I had my roof done like, oh my gosh, 7-8 years ago. And those guys were working in those environments that my athletes do. And I said, hey, this is some of the stuff I give my athletes, when they took their break. So the foreman comes back the next day and he's like, what did you give my guys? Because I was just like, hey, if you want to try it, you can, right? This is just something that will help you feel better. You're sweating a lot. And I just know this environment and what you're having to deal with, and first thing that goes is cognitivity, and they're up on my roof, and so I'm like, we gotta help these guys, right? That's what I'm thinking, because that's the place I come from as a trainer. You love people, and so that's what started the whole concept. I was like, we don't have anything like this in the industry. We've got your packets that, like you brought up earlier, you've got your sports drinks. Those things don't get someone out of a situation quickly. So like if an athlete went down, I would squirt this literally in their mouth and chase it with whatever liquid we had, to get rid of a cramp, because it gets in the bloodstream, gets to the areas. Because when you're cramping, that's pressure, that's actually strain on your heart, because it's taking from everywhere else to keep that heart pumping. Does that make sense? That's why we have cramps and we have restless legs and we have headaches. I don't know how many people, story after story after story, that this stuff helps with headaches, because women, we tend to drink water. We want pretty skin and all these things, but we're not getting enough of the sodium. And so so we actually are causing ourselves to have worse periods and headaches. I know that's not what you probably want to talk about, but it's life, and, your wife's pregnant right now. So recovering and having, enough, um, hydration is really huge for her and the baby. And if you don't know what hydration is, that it's just water, and you're thinking just water, you could actually, lose too many minerals and cause more problems. And that nobody ever wants to talk about that. So, anyways, that was a full circle, and you're just standing there staring at me. So, did I lose you on any of that?
No, I was just listening and taking it all in because it's very, very intriguing. So it's like back in the day, like if someone was to go get water, you go to the stream, and that stream pretty much produces naturally the minerals that those people would need as long as the water is clean. But when you get into boiling the water, like let's just say I live in a place where the water's not good, I need to boil the water. Is that when the minerals come out of it, or is
Yeah,
that different?
anything like that. Anytime you try and like, I guess, what do they call that? Like boiling it is a way of like killing off like things, right? Because of the heat element. So I would think that that would probably make it kill everything in the water, that with the boiling aspect. But you also don't want to drink water that's going to make you sick, right? So
Right.
it is an issue these days, and that's why you see a lot of these water companies coming out with the pH, level, like the expensive waters and things like that with the additives. The problem is there's not enough of it in there to replace what we really need to stay hydrated. We do reverse osmosis in our house. Like we have a machine, so we can have clean water, but you still got to add what you're reverse osmosing out. I'm not the brightest one, but I do I do know I need to put it in there. So it's just thinking more salt and water, not and in a mineral form, non-synthetic. We are not synthetic. Anytime we put synthetics in our body, it doesn't work really well. It's kind of like it takes like an hour and a half, they say, to get like what you need from a synthetic sodium or potassium, like if you're in a heat stress situation. But with our stuff, since it's ionic and can be absorbed and not have to be digested processed, it goes straight into the bloodstream. It's very quick. It's like, that's why they call it at the job sites the oral IV hydration, because they've had guys like go down and like they're seizing up, and that's not good. So you either couldn't take them out and cool them down and do all the things to do, but sometimes they have to just go to the emergency room, right, and get an IV. That is what we're trying to avoid. And so the few companies that we got to work with have not had any heat related, illnesses, or they call it something in the industry. The safety guys call it it's like when they have to document it. And that's huge, because last summer we had triple digit heat 3 months straight, nonstop. And these guys are working in not only humid, but heat, right? And then you add the element of, like, one of our companies is a concrete company. So then you add the element of the heat that's coming from that, the heat that's coming from the sun, the sweating, and then it's just a cocktail for just a disaster. And you can see why it's $100 billion a year problem, So, and then you're dealing with people that are doing it 8 to 10 hours a day, every day, day in, day out. It's a and then they're drinking water because they have water at every station, and they're pulling them, making them drink water, so they're washing more out. It's just it's crazy. So it takes a lot of education. It's simple, but it just takes going and talking to people like you, and just educating people about, like, look, this is hydration. It's this plus this, and that's what is in our solution, and that's why that's literally our whole campaign right now, is drinking water versus hydration, and just getting people to understand that it's going to keep the job sites safer, having options. Because what are most of your people that are in the labor industry doing? You can't stop them from drinking a beer at night. You can't stop them from having eating out of a taco truck or a 7-Eleven. They can't stop them from drinking the energy drinks. Why are they drinking them? Because they're tired. They're exhausted. They don't have what they need to function, and then they're getting depleted every day. And so it just keeps job. I mean, I know that companies like to keep the job on time because they get, hit with fees and things like that. And so they like that part of it, but they do truly do care about their employees, right? They don't want them having to go to emergency rooms just to function in the summer. Like that's crazy, and that's temporary because then they're off, what, 5 to 7 days? I might have that number wrong. I'm not a safety guy. I just talk to a lot of them. But once they go to the emergency room to get an IV, they can't come back for several days. There's a whole process. So it's a passion, as you can tell, and I'm kind of a little all over the place, but I just wanted to just kind of get the concept of what hydration is, and it's not water. Are you starting to get what I'm trying to? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah. I'm picking it up. So it's crazy to me that someone could be drinking all the water. They could be doing all the right things. However, by not having one extra little supplementation, that can lead to a lot of health causes such as headaches and things that you're mentioning, as well as by not being properly supplemented to stay hydrated is costing companies billions of dollars.
Yeah, that's you said it better than I did, and you made it all happen in 30 seconds. We'll talk after. Maybe I need your help with my. I need, but
Hey,
no, that's awesome. Well, here's the thing. You know what? Every single time I have an interaction with a new company or anything, it's always the healthiest dude, the youngest guy, the most in shape, the one carrying around the gallon jug of water at the job site that falls out first. Why is that?
they're overdoing it.
They're drinking just water because that's what they're told. They're
So
told.
it reminds me of Tony Robbins.
Mm.
Like he was like, it's good to eat fish. It's good to eat fish. And then Tony Robbins ended up getting mercury poisoning because he was eating too much fish. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is drinking too much water of just water. It almost would be better if I drink
An energy drink.
half
Let me tell
half
you
a
a
gallon
story.
of water and a salt tablet.
Yeah, that's what we used to do back in the day. That's what they used to do back in my day. They give the guys salt tablets and things like that because that's really what you need. That's how you have to have that. If you don't, that's how you die. It's really that important. Salt and light. We're salt and light. So here's the deal. Okay, one of the guys that he's a trainer, we're friends, and he got called to do gosh, I'm going to get it wrong, but he's in the military and at the border of Texas just recently, it was a year ago. And he was, they were, giving the guys cases of water, and then sending them out, and they all had their energy drinks and everything like that. But they were having heat issue after heat issue after heat issue, like sicknesses, illnesses. All the guys were dropping out because last summer was rough. So he said we even got to the point where all we did was give them a case of water and they had to bring it with them. And I said, let me guess, you took away their energy drinks. He said, yeah. I said, it got worse, didn't it? And he was like, and it got worse. Everyone thinks that, it would have got better. And I said, no, the only reason why it got worse is because at least energy drinks have sodium in it. It may not be the best quality. And yes, caffeine does decrease your sodium levels, but it had some, and they were getting something, and then they went from something to nothing, and then sweating it out and in all their gear and trying to function, and that's why their heat related incidences went up a ton, like almost double. So yes, that's how important salt is to our body, and of course there's different levels, and we do the non-synthetic mineral one that is derived from the sea, the Utah Sea, so that you can get the 72 minerals in it. That's because that's literally what that is, and that's the life-sustaining minerals. Because every one of our organs run on minerals. Our brain runs on salt, our heart, our blood, our kidneys, potassium, right? All these things. I'm being really brief. I mean, it's more than that. But if you don't have those things balanced, that's how dis-ease happens in the body. It's why we have diabetes and we have heart disease. Those two things. We have doctors telling their guys not to reduce their sodium so that when they're on high blood pressure medicine. But when you reduce your sodium levels and you're on high blood pressure medicine and then you're out in the elements sweating, that's just it can get really crazy, right? So it's actually reteaching what your body really needs to run on. And so that there's nothing that replaces that salt and that mineral salt.
So what you're saying is there's sodium. There's a sodium that comes in like
That's processed.
French fries. Like
Yeah,
if I eat French fries, like that has a bunch of sodium. However, there's another kind of sodium, and that's the sodium you're focused on. That's more of a
mineral.
supplement, mineral, natural that your body actually needs, especially if you're going to be in high temperature climates.
That was perfectly said. I'm gonna get that clip and it's going on Instagram.
All right,
We
we'll
taste
do it.
the difference, and we need to be looking more at sugar. Sugar's more of a blood pressure and blood sugar issue than sodium. Salt is what is we're blaming salt for what sugar does. Think about the American diet. It's literally everything's processed and sugar ridiculous, but then reduce your salt. Just it's so crazy. So it's just changing the way people think. It's just adding that value to with the company that I started. It's truly just adding that value to a situation where it's very difficult to function. Like my husband's a police officer, and I knew how to fuel him for the environment he's in. He has the mental and physical demand, right?
Mhm.
And so those two things, not just physical, but mental, they both deplete you of minerals that you need to function. So if you know how to fuel the body for those elements, you're going to be able to manage the situations better. That's what I did for athletes. I mean, if you're a quarterback and if you want to fire and be able to and have your brain functioning at the same rate as your body and everything all at one time, if you're not fueled properly, something's not going to connect right. It's going to disconnect you, and you're going to have issues with that athlete. We got to think the same way with our industrial, with our police, with first responders and stuff, and understand that they're not only having to manage 2-hour game, they're managing 8-hour days on top of family, on top of the stresses that we all deal with in life, and then we're eating things that are not helping that, and then we're drinking things that are not helping that, and it's just like we wonder why there's so many issues, right? So
Mhm.
you can't change those things. I know one thing: when I worked with athletes, they're the most disciplined people. I'm a former athlete. My husband is one. My kids were, and I knew how to. And we think differently. We're able to be disciplined because we have a game on Friday, so we want to make sure that week that we're fueling everything right. And even though we don't want to, we want to have the pancakes. We're going to wait till after the game to have the pancakes, whatever, right? The hardest thing to change in a person's habits is their eating habits. It is the hardest thing to do. And even with disciplined athletes, I had many pushbacks and struggles with it, right? Think about the average person just going to and from work and just the easy thing and the life stresses and everything. They're not going to change their diet for the workday. We're seeing that, right? If they were to eat oranges and apples and have their bananas and they're not doing that, right? And that would help. That would help a lot. Like in other countries, they don't have water bottles at job sites. They have oranges because that's how you hydrate. You know, so that's not the reality of the life that we live.
So,
And
so,
so
so what you're saying is the soccer moms back in the day were on to something. It's like, oh, here's your oranges.
yeah, that's literally the way to hydrate. We think water hydrates you, and it doesn't, right? We've gone over this many times, but you'll still have people go, but I drink tons of water. So, if we can add a level of safety and have an option at a job site, because you're like I said, you can't control what people do outside. But if you come in Monday after a party weekend, like Monday morning, and you're having to work in triple digit heat all day long on the road, but you partied all weekend, so you're already dehydrated from alcohol or whatever, and your lack of sleep, you can take someone and go, okay, look, let's charge you up. Let's get the stuff in you that you need. If you're hungover, this gets rid of hangovers. That's not how we market it, but it's a reality of the situation that people deal with daily, right? So it gives the companies the option to add that value without having to, you know, you know, just have another meeting about hydration and make sure you're eating right because they're not doing it. So at least have an option to like squirt it in 2 or 3 ounces of water, shotgun that thing, and then go on with the day. Because I'll tell you one more story because I love stories, and this one's my favorite.
Tell
And
me
then,
about it.
okay, so this is downtown Austin. Last summer, the crane guy. So when you're in a city area, Austin, Texas, You have the crane guy come in. It's a major deal. Like there's only one dude that does it, and then you set up this whole thing for the day, and you're got buildings right beside each other, and this was a major project. So the crane operator started seizing up having issues, heat stress issues, and things like that, and so one
Like
of
in the crane?
the crane operator.
Like in the crane, like at
He
the
came
very, very
down.
top.
He came down, and so one of the safety guys, that's the concrete company that we have. They had just started using our stuff. He goes, he went. He's like, we got to get this stuff in him. So he went. He shook it up and he squirted it in his mouth, and because the guy was like cramping up and and having a heat stress situation, right? And then I don't know what some fluid he drank. Might have been water, whatever it was, and chased it with that. And he said within 10 minutes, he said it was less than 10 minutes. The cramp stopped. He was feeling better. He was able to stand up. He was more cognitive. So they sent him up the They're like, you put 40 drops in everything you're drinking, or what, just make sure you're putting that back in. And he sent him home with it. But what the whole point of that story is, they would have had to shut down that job site for the day. They would have had to, and that was, you're talking like 20 grand, no problem, and then have to reset it all up days later when he finally is able to come back and feel better, if they didn't have this as an option. So it's one of those things where that stories like that make people understand, oh, okay, this is a game changer for the industry, because people aren't going to, we're not going to change our habits, but we can add value, and I love adding value, and getting people home to their families, right? That's important.
Yeah, totally. And so it's clear you're passionate about this. How are you turning this into a profitable organization?
Oh my goodness. It's been a lot of work, because literally this is where this is it. Like this, I go around to job sites, 200-300 guys, and I have a translator, because a lot of Hispanic men and women work in the industry. I married a Hispanic man, but I don't speak Spanish, and so I've had to learn that. But it's education, and then the company's buying into the concept, because it's so inexpensive to have this available, and so that it's been more about educating, and then eventually it'll get to a place where it'll be more lucrative for our family, but right now it's just, I'm 3 years into this thing, in this world, and learning. And
Oh, you're just getting started.
exactly, and I'm learning a different thing, because I used to trade time for money, right, as a trainer. Does that make sense? Now it's
Mhm.
a ton of time, no money, but the concept of what I'm creating will turn into I guess, is that the right term? You're the money guy.
It'll become profitable at some point in time.
Right. And we're saving companies money, because they're not having to pay insurance, or not paying insurance, but workman's comp goes down, right? You don't have the hospital visits, and it you don't you're maybe paying for something to have something there available to them, but it's nothing. It's pennies on the dollar, as opposed to a whole job site being shut down for the day, right? So it's gonna turn into something. But I'm gonna be one of those people that's on Ed Milet, talking about how it's an overnight success with our concept. But nobody that I know of is doing what we're doing for the labor industry, and so eventually God will honor the hard work that we're putting into it, because our heart's in the right place, and
Mhm.
word's getting out, like you found me, and it's not that we're like not making money. It's growing. It's a part of the business process. I'm learning. There's a lot of expenses that you don't realize that when you start a company, and now I have my son working with me, and that's been a joy, because he's amazing. He was a former football player, big old redhead. Before a game, I would squirt some in some water and here, and then halftime he'd be running with this crew, and I'd be like, recharge, and then afterwards I'd be like, another hit, because I want him to recover. So it's a family thing, family business, and it's just growing, and we're helping. Whenever I'm a believer, I believe in God's word, and it says in His word that the one thing He asks of us is to love one another. And, and so when you do that, if you truly, help other people, that's I'll let him, we'll be on his math scale, right? Does that make sense? Loving others, taking care of others, and then it'll, come full circle.
Yeah. So now, like, did you develop this product? Like, who actually like is
Yeah. So being
made
in
this?
bakery for so long, and my mom owned health food stores, and she was a nutritionist. I knew all the companies that make stuff, and the ones that did good, and the ones that didn't. And so when I started coming up with this concept, I wanted to go with the number one mineral company in the country because of the way that they derive their minerals, and they're the only ones that do it that way, and they've been in business for 40 years, so they make my product.
So
That's it.
if I, what's kind of crazy is something that happened a long time ago gave you
Yeah.
the connection in order to turn this mineral into something I could just hold in my hand, squirt in my water, and be good to go.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's
Because
crazy. It's crazy how things work out like that.
women, we tend to like take vitamins and things like that. And my husband's good about it now, but when he was young and so he was like, yeah, whatever, I don't have time for that. I'll just eat my cheeseburger and stuff, right? So I knew it needed to be something that was quick, fast, simple, not something that was like a pill that you had to take, or so it needed to be that you could add to anything. Some of my friends, they have elderly parents. They put it in their soup after they've cooked their soup. They'll put like 20 drops in it so that they can get that potassium and sodium that's good into them, because hydration is a big problem for elderly people. And it's funny because everyone that always says, well, I know I need to drink more water. And I'm like, actually, the fact that you're probably not drinking as much water as you think you need to be is probably why you're still doing okay, because you're not washing it out, right? So washing out the minerals that you need. So it it's I hope that answered your question.
So I have a thought. So let's just say I go to the gym and I work out really hard, or I go run a 5K. After the 5K is over, what would be better for me to drink?
A beer.
That's the answer. So you already knew I was gonna ask. So like a beer would actually hydrate me more because of everything that's in it. Because typically, like a simple beer, I'm not talking like an IPA or all this crazy beers that come out that have all these different ingredients, but
I
just
was
like a
kind of
simple
kidding.
beer. Would a beer be better than water?
I don't, I was only kidding because I
I'm
don't.
saying one beer or one water. Like
Yeah, right. One and one. Well, I mean, it the fizziness of a beer is like the fizzy, like that's why the Topo Chico, like that has sodium in it, and so those, like, that's why people want that fizziness, because it quenches their thirst. It's the sodium in it that does that. Does that make sense?
so
So
like I feel like I saw like France actually has like places you could fill up your water, and it's actually like not flat water. It's like sparkling water. So that sparkling water is actually better for hydration than just
because it has some
normal.
mineral in it.
Has some minerals in it, but not enough to like fully hydrate you, but it's better than nothing.
Right. There you go. That's it. Perfect. Of course, I mean, boom, if you put that in anything, put this in your beer, you're going to have a better chance of hydrating while you're dehydrating. But no, it's just, we do, because we do work we still have, like, I have one of the guys at my church, he uses our stuff, and he does the 100-mile run thing, like the ultra stuff. And
Ultra Iron Man or something like that.
a lot of those people, they'll do like the salt tabs and things like that, because they understand that their salt levels, and to keep from, because they're losing it faster than they can put it in. But he's hardcore, man. He'll just squirt it and go and like keep going. But I mean, you got to be hardcore if you're doing 100 miles. If you're running 100 miles, like, oh my God. You still need liquids to get it in. It's just, it gets it in quicker. Doesn't have to be metabolized. It's, at the cellular level, it's ionic. And so that's why it's so effective. Because you need to have an answer, because once you see someone going into a heat stress situation, when they start acting drunk and stuff like that, it goes downhill quick. And that's the organs shutting down, trying to keep the heart pumping, because it's taking from everything it can to try and keep that heart pumping. And so if you have an option, something like this at a job site, you can at least get it in them quicker. you know, and hopefully not have to go the next step, but at least it's an option that you don't have, unless, you know, that most job sites don't have. They don't have IVs at job sites that I mean, you know, like literal IVs, right? They have to, some of them, it depends on the oil and gas. They might have like the emergency vehicles close because there's no hospitals close. I'm serious. Like that like out in Midland, I have a company that we service out there, Midland, Texas, there's nothing. So they have like emergency vehicles that are on site that they can use and go to if they need to, but they don't want to have to do that, you know. They don't want, like, so they haven't had to, you know, it just helps having the understanding that when you start to feel that fatigue come on, when you start to feel that dizziness or that thing, that you reach for the salt, not the, you know, the water. And that's why people do the, you know, sports drinks and things like that, because of the salt in it. But it doesn't, it's not going to metabolize as fast, but it's still better than nothing. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I'm a believer. I'm gonna buy one.
Oh well, I'm going to send you one. Are you kidding me? You're what? We'll talk about that afterwards. I meant to do that before, but it's been a rough week. You
It's
know.
all good.
Yeah.
Well, I feel it's very inspirational what you're doing. You have a vision to see what happens with this until its conclusion, and I feel like it's very inspirational. And obviously, hydration is super important. So I feel like, you know, everyone that listens to this, make sure you learn the difference between hydration versus just drinking water. And I'm glad that we had you on, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been awesome. It's been an honor, and I appreciate you letting me just blah. Just keep
Hey, it was valuable. So we'll peace and love, everyone. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.